As the sun shines on all of my glory, my flaws don't look so bad at all. What was I so afraid of?
Hey everybody, it's Sharmel. Welcome back to Loc's Lux Lifestyle. Welcome back to another video. So today I am back with another LOC chat, and in this video I'm mainly going to be doing kind of like an updated Q&A as well as some LOC misconceptions. So let's get right into it. So first things first, per usual, I am not a professional. I'm mainly going to be speaking on like my experience, things that I've learned throughout my journey, and just speaking on some of my opinions on things that I see, you know, across the internet, in real life, all of that. I'll start with the basics. I'm just gonna be kind of just like a little recap just in case you're new here, and because I seem to get asked these questions all the time. So first things first, I've been locked for almost 3 years now. So I did start my locks the traditional way, but they're not looking real traditional right now. I started my lock journey on September 8th, 2020. I started with 2-strand twists. I started them myself. For the most part, I have maintained my locks myself. It was something very new to me, and I've just been kind of learning about locks throughout these last 3 years through my own personal journey, research. I wore my locks for like the first year and a half, just kind of regularly, let them mature and develop into their own. And then at about a year and a half, I got lock extensions. I added lock extensions to my pre-existing locks. I wore the lock extensions for about 6 months, got rid of those, returned to just my natural locks, wore my natural locks for another 6 months, and then like within this last month, I added these like curly tips to the end of my locks for this like bohemian look. Yes, I have done a lot to my locks within these last 3 years, but this is still my original set of locks. Although I've done all of these different things, I've still been able to maintain my locks. I have a total of 68 locks. I started out with more, but I did combine some along the journey. Those are just some of the main basics about my locks, but I have been documenting my whole lock journey on my channel since the beginning, so I will have all of those associated playlists linked down below if you want more information. But yes, that's just kind of like the basic background on my lock. I'll get into like the first misconception that I see often is that once you lock your hair, you can't do anything, you're stuck with your locks, you can't experiment, you can't do any of that. But as I just gave you guys the rundown on my hair, I have done a lot with my locks over these last 3 years, and like I said, this is still my original set of locks. You are not limited with locks. Any style that I see that I feel like I want to recreate, I find a way to recreate it. Now it does take a little bit of imagination and it takes some trial and error, but everything I pretty much did with my hair before, I can still do it now. It does look different. I have to be more open-minded to the process, but I can recreate the same looks that I did when I was a loose natural. And the next thing is that even if you do decide to do things a little more drastically, like I said, I've done lock extensions and I have these curly ends added now. Just because I have this now does not mean that I can't return to my original locks. I've done it before and I'll do it again once I get tired of this. So again, you can experiment without feeling like if I do this, then I'm never going to be able to return to the traditional look of locks. No, you can do it all. The next misconception is that I'm always doing something to my hair. And this one is really funny. Like, I get it just because I make lock content, but I feel like even if we narrow it down and niche it down even more, like I feel like my genre is styling. So I get it if you follow me, if you look at my content, if you go look at my page, I get it. I get it. But I do feel like there's this idea that since I'm putting out all of these lock tutorials, that like every day I'm putting my hair in all these intricate styles, pulling on my locks, doing all of these different things, and every now and then I'll get comments saying like, you do too much with your locks, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, and all these other different things. And they're always funny to me because although I post a lot of lock styles, y'all, majority of the time I don't do anything to my hair. So I started my locks in the middle of the pandemic when I was working from home. 3 years later, I'm still working from home, and to be honest, like at least 75% of my time I'm at home. And when I'm at home, I'm in loungewear and my hair may be in like a messy ponytail or a bun or just loose, whatever. When I'm at home, I'm really casual and not doing much. And even when I do post like certain tutorials and things, I also try to make sure to include, you know, healthy hair practices within my tutorials, because Obviously, if you are pulling on your hair every day, it's not healthy. But because I'm a creator, like when I get on camera, when you guys see me, oftentimes I'm gonna pull myself together a little bit. Just being on camera, at least for me, there's a standard that I want to present myself on camera. So I feel like because most of the time when you guys see me, I'm on camera and I'm at that basic standard, but I'm not on camera every day. Again, most of the time, I either got a bonnet on my head in the house or my hair is kind of loose and wild or in a messy bun. Another thing that I get a lot of questions about, especially since I do a lot of styling and things like that, is like the heaviness and the uncomfortableness of the styles that I do. So if it's a style that's gonna include me adding hair or something like that, I try to stick with like Marley hair or spring twist hair. They're more similar to the texture of my locks, but they're also very lightweight. So when I do these styles, I try to incorporate products or added hair that's lightweight. But for the most part, most of my styles are pretty lightweight. I feel like the times when I did experience like heaviness with styling was early on in my loc journey, when I tried like box braids and I did like some long spring twists over my locks before, and I've done faux locks a few times over my locks. So if I do like a shorter length of like faux locks, and depending on the method I use, they're typically lightweight. But the longer you go, especially with adding anything extra to your locks, it runs the potential to be heavy. So when I did like longer faux locks, they definitely had weight to them. So that's something to think about. And then as far as like the comfort level, so anything like barrel twist or cornrows, braids, so those often run the risk of being tight and uncomfortable. I personally don't do barrel twist as much because I feel like of all the styles that I've tried, barrel twists tend to be the most uncomfortable, but there are ways to make them a little looser. But two strand twists, all of those things, they have the potential to be tight and uncomfortable depending on how tight you're braiding or how tight you're twisting the hair together. And I feel like that's the same with like if you had loose hair. If you braid your loose hair, if you braid it too tight, it's gonna be uncomfortable. It's the same things with your locks. If you braid your lock together too tight, it's gonna be uncomfortable. Ponytail styles, because I do wear a lot of updos and ponytail styles. I have a couple of videos showing you guys like how I wear my ponytails, but a lot of times I'll cut my scrunchie, so it's just like a long piece like that, and then when I tie it, I'll use that to kind of adjust the tightness so that it's comfortable. I tend to do that method a lot because I'm more in control of how tight or how loose I can make the ponytail. Another trick that I've showed you guys is like leaving my perimeter locks out, putting my hair up into a ponytail and then like pinning those locks up opposed to banding them in the rubber band. I feel like most styles, if you wear them for too long, they run the risk of being uncomfortable, but there's always ways to manage it. And in general, like especially like my easy everyday styles, I don't sleep in them. I'll do my hair to go to whatever it is that I need to go take care of, and then by the end of the day, the style is down and out of my head. So yeah, comfortability, it varies depending on the style, but if you're doing it yourself, you have more control of the comfort level of the style. So next, I want to talk about like coloring and bleaching, because I have been coloring my locks my entire loc journey, and oftentimes I get questions asking like, how do I maintain my locks? How do I keep them healthy and maintain like the structure and integrity of my locks with all the different coloring that I do? So when it comes to like coloring and bleaching locks, there are like a lot of different opinions. There are people who are all for it, and then there's also people who are like, no, don't bleach your locks, you're gonna mess up your locks. So when you do any chemical processing to your hair, you run the risk of potential damage. Like, it's just a given when it comes to working with chemicals. You know, you're chemically altering the strands of your hair, you know, to take them from dark to light or to whatever color you're going to. Thus for you are breaking down just like the natural structure of the hair strand. So yes, color, bleaching, all of that, you run the risk of potential damage. However, that's a risk that I'm willing to take, which is why I do it. And I will say that if you do choose to go the route of bleaching and coloring, you definitely want to be mindful of your hair practices, but there are still things that you can do to try to keep your locks in the healthiest state possible. So in my case, I actually colored my hair like 2 to 3 months before I started my locks. So when I started my locks, my hair was already lifted to like a brownish color. So I already started my locks kind of in a lightened state. So when it came to maintaining that like initial color, I was really only focusing on the roots of my hair, and I wasn't like reapplying dye and bleach to the entire strand of my hair. So that's one way to kind of maintain the integrity. Once you bleach your hair or lift it or get a desired color, you shouldn't be constantly going over your locks with bleach. You should mainly just be focusing on touching up your roots. Another thing that I did is I used box dye, and I know there's a lot of mixed opinions about box dyes, but again, since I'm not a professional, I prefer to use box dyes because although it has like bleach or a bleaching agent in it, it's more controlled in my opinion than mixing up like bleaching powder and developer in a bowl and applying that straight to your hair. Another thing is that I haven't bleached or lightened my hair super light. So this is about the lightest that I've gone or been. This has kind of been like, whenever I do like the browns, this is usually like my go-to standard brown that I have. Obviously, if you want to go lighter, that means that you have to chemically alter your hair even more. And since I've been locked, I've always had the desire to go like really blonde, but I know what comes with going really blonde. You run the risk of causing damage. So I've kind of stayed in this like sandy brownish kind of color. When I did go blonde, I got it in the form of loc extensions, so I was able to get my fix without adding bleach to my locks. And then also, again, since I started with lightened hair, a lot of times I would just be depositing color on top of my already lightened hair, and depositing color over your hair is a lot different than bleaching your hair. And then the few times that I did use bleach on my hair, I've always done a bleach bath, and I've only done this probably like twice. I did it once last year, and I recently just did it like a month ago. And so I'll do a bleach bath. In a bleach bath, you use the bleaching powder in the developer, but I also dilute it with water and conditioner just to kind of like balance it out a little bit so it's not super abrasive to my hair. And then lastly, I try to put space in between like these coloring processes. And then I also think that it's important to be like honest about your ability and what you're willing to maintain. So if you do decide that you want to bleach your locks or color your locks, be mindful that it is and it can be very high maintenance. So if you know that you are not in a position to really take care of your hair in the way that it needs to, I would advise against it. You know, you're not able to go see your loctician on a consistent and regular basis, don't color your locks, because without proper maintenance it can lead to damage. That means that I have to stay up on hydrating my locks and moisturizing my locks and conditioning my locks. So yes, you can maintain healthy locks with color, but it's also about the maintenance. And even if you do all of that right, when you dabble in the chemicals, they have the potential to go wrong. But again, that's a risk I'm willing to take. So if you know that you can't deal with any adverse reactions, don't even stress yourself out. Don't do it. Just don't do it. And then to kind of piggyback off of like the coloring and the styling, I've often got questions about thinning, if I've experienced any thinning with my locks. And honestly, if I have, I haven't noticed it. I think what's most important as somebody like me who likes to experiment and do all these different things, you want to stay up on your healthy hair practices. So yeah, I really haven't experienced any thinning. Now towards the ends of my locks, on some of them, I have a couple of weak spots, but that's because of my loc extensions. I still have my loc extensions attached to certain locks, and on some of them, you can kind of still see like where they kind of meet. I do have a few weak points towards the ends of my locks, which I will cut eventually. And that's the thing, I feel like people think because you have locks that a little trim won't hurt. A little trim here and there is not gonna hurt y'all. Just like you need regular trims when you have loose hair, a little trim here and there with the locks won't hurt either. So I do plan on giving my locks a good trim sometime this year. Probably when I'm done with this style, I think I'm gonna give my locks a good trim, because again, I'm always experimenting, and because I want my locks to continue to grow and be healthy, I have to do what's necessary sometimes to keep them that way. So yeah, I haven't experienced any thinning like along my actual locks, but I did pull my edges out last year and I was a little nervous for a while. About 6 months ago, y'all, it was when I did the 2-strand twist bob, and basically one of my twists was too tight on this side and I knew it was too tight, and I should have took it down and redid it, but I didn't do it. And let this be a lesson to y'all: if something is uncomfortable, fix it. So I didn't fix it, and I would kind of like untwist it a little bit to give myself a little relief, but obviously that wasn't enough. On top of that, when I would tie my hair up at night, I would kind of pull it back because, I don't know, sensory issues. I don't like when my scarf is like covering my ears or when hair is like covering my ears. So I usually make sure that my ears are exposed whenever I tie up my hair. And so constantly pulling that lock back that was already tight, it definitely ripped out my edges. So this was like 6 months ago, and my edges are already naturally fine, and you guys probably can't tell. I've talked about it in a few videos, so I don't know if anybody's ever noticed, but this side right here, I definitely ripped out my edges. And then lastly, the last misconception that I want to talk about: it is okay to not be in love with your locks. And even if you do love your locks, it's okay to not be in love with your locks at all times. And I know a lot of people probably won't like that or agree with that, but hear me out. In general, I feel like there's this like rat race, especially social media, but in general, I feel like everybody's in this rat race to be like the most self-aware. And oftentimes when it comes to locks and when it comes to the lock community, I feel like the locks are heavily associated with like enlightenment and self-love. And for a lot of people, I do feel like that is part of their lock journey. But a big part of being self-aware, I feel like, is being honest with yourself that I have areas that I'm uncomfortable with. Main part in self-awareness is self. I feel like people come into their lock journey expecting to have like this big enlightenment moment based on what other people say and other people's experience, and when they don't have that big enlightened moment, they feel like something's wrong with them or that they're doing something wrong. People almost will make you feel like you should be ashamed if you are not like in love with your locks all the time. Self-aware doesn't mean that you're just super perfect and you don't have any issues and everything is all good. Being self-aware means that you're aware of all the issues that you have. So a big part of being self-aware is being able to say like, I am uncomfortable with this aspect of my life. When it comes to locks, I am uncomfortable with this aspect of my locks. And I get so many comments all the time, messages, people telling me like, I'm so happy I found your channel because I didn't know what to do with my locks. I don't like the way that my locks look, and your videos have given me confidence and helped me learn how to maintain my locks or do my locks. And again, y'all, I'm not a professional. This all started out with me just wanting to have locks and documenting my process and my journey along the way. And if you have followed my journey, especially in the beginning, I've been very open and transparent about my feelings and just trying to navigate this new space of having locks. So yes, again, it is okay to not be in love with your locks. Ideally, we all hope to reach that high point of enlightenment, but again, it is a journey, it is a process. And I know many people have their opinions about me because I'm always doing something with my locks and experimenting, and I know it's not for everybody, right? But I feel like people kind of assume that I don't love my locks because I'm always doing all of these different things and altering them and experimenting with them. But I always find that so baffling because these 3 years that I've been on my lock journey is probably the most appreciation and love that I've had for my hair ever. Like pre-locks, if y'all said some of that stuff, I would be like, you know what, you might be right. But now with my locks, the way that I love and adore and appreciate my locks is like no other. Something I often hear and see when people say like they don't like their locks and that they don't know what to do with their locks, and they always say like, I don't touch my locks, I just let them be. And it's one thing if that's your like aesthetic, because I know there are many people who enjoy more of like a relaxed, carefree look to their locks. But if you're having a hard time finding that love for your locks, you can't be afraid to touch them. I feel like a big way that I was able to fall in love with my locks is by actually touching my hair, not being afraid of my hair, experimenting, seeing how it feels. Like, first of all, our hair is very strong, it's resilient. Like, locks is something else. Every day I be amazed like, dang, I really got locks. But you can't be afraid of your locks. What helped me cultivate my relationship with my locks was just learning how to do them, learning how to maintain them, whether washing, retwisting, styling, all of those different things. And I know a lot of what I do with my hair isn't for everyone, but What I will say is that if you are struggling to have this like deep love for your locks, don't be afraid of. But yeah, y'all, that's pretty much it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Follow me on all of my social media platforms, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye.